your struggle is our struggle. So I would definitely recommend they come down to the meetings.
And so the meetings, when did you say, Antonio, the meetings?
Every Tuesday.
Every Tuesday, what time?
6:30 to 8:30. Bring your children. We offer daycare for your children. There's also
food
dinner.
And beverages.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, like, if somebody had questions, is there a number and a website also that they can?
Absolutely. The website is clvu.org, and the phone number is 617-524-3541.
Okay, now, as it pertains to the breakdown of folks who are being ripped off and who you serve, racially, percentage-wise, I'm operating an assumption that the high percentage of folks who are being ripped off are folks who look like us.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And, we're being driven out. So is that the experience that you're having there?
Yeah, we see people of, African Americans. We see a lot of people from different countries, Dominicans, Haitians, just basically people of color. It's definitely, I would say the targeted population are people who are brown and black people. When you come to our meetings, you'll see that, and low income.
Low income, yeah.
So what would you say that you're, based on your actions, Antonio, what has your success rate been so far? I mean, have you represented like 400 folks and you won 150 or what?
I don't know the exact number, but we've definitely won more than we've lost.
More.
I mean, I got to tell you, nothing's guaranteed. Every case is different, but with the movement that we create and the actions that we do, we've definitely won more than we've lost. We've saved a lot of people's homes and kept people in their homes from the work that we do as far as getting out there in the streets and protesting and holding the banks accountable and bringing awareness. A lot of what goes on in our community is people, they don't want you to know what's going on. They're embarrassed. Like I was saying earlier, like getting past that, some people may be listening right now and they may be facing eviction, but they don't want to say anything because they may think they can't fight the situation. They may think, oh, well, that's just the way it is, he's kicking me out. But tenants have a lot of rights in Massachusetts. Tenants have more rights than homeowners. So people need to realize that and stand up and fight against the injustices that are happening.
Okay. So it looks like we're going to go to a break here, so I don't want to get into another conversation and have that cut off and then have to come back. So for those of you who tuned in, I'm sure this applies to a lot of folks who are listening here. This is Drumbeat, the Continuum here, sponsored by the Black Community Information Center. And we're talking about something that applies to everybody that lives in Greater Roxbury. And that's the whole thing in regards to your stability as it pertains to where you live and whether you're going to continue to live there. So with that, we want you to stay tuned. If you might have some friends or neighbors or family that are in this dilemma, you should have them tune in. And remember, the number is 617-708-3280. That's 617-708-3280. Family show, don't be shy, and we'll be right back.
Don't look at me. Your hair's a bit frizzy today. Oh, you should pick that up. Oh, you're such a dork. Loser. Here, let me help you with that. Oops.
Every day, kids witness bullying.
Oh, look. Your crush is looking at you. Poor you.
They want to help, but don't know how.
See, no one here's gonna help you, because no one
Teach your
likes
kids
you.
how to be more than a bystander. Visit stopbullying.gov.
Pretty much a good day for me would be people leaving their hands off of me. I'm always called names. Everywhere that I go, there's always someone calling me names, calling me gay. I've been choked, thrown up against a wall, punched. Nobody's ever tried to help me.
Here is my handle and here is my spout.
When I get all steamed up, then I shout.
Tip me over and pour me out. Oh. The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life.
Cheers.
Take time to be a dad today.
Welcome, Black brothers and sisters. This is Sadiki Kambon, once again with Drumbeat to Continuum, and we're discussing something that's very important and it applies to everybody that lives in the community here, particularly the Greater Roxbury community, in regards to our living situation and observing the problems that we have out here. So we're going to get right back to the situation right here with our guests. And Lovely, you had mentioned something that you, the importance of, well, getting into that whole thing about, because a lot of folks feel that, like, the important work that y'all are doing, that the tide has been turned.
Right.
But based on what you're saying, that's not factual. Yeah,
actually, some of the research we've done has found that actually foreclosure since last April has increased by 50%. So that's, in terms of people thinking that it's actually over, it's not. People are still facing issues around foreclosure in our communities.
I see. So Antonio, on an average week, how many folks do you think walk through the doors? Because I heard what you said before, but a lot of folks don't know, or they're in fear. They don't know that there's a resource like your organization that exists. So how many folks do you say you average during the week, and do you think that the numbers should be, hopefully through this show, that more folks will be aware and they feel like, they should be coming through because they're a valuable resource, but on your experience?
Yeah, I mean, on our weekly meetings, we're probably averaging about, I'd say 7 to 10 new people every Tuesday. It could be more, it should be more. At the end of the day, people, like I said, they're apprehensive a little bit to come out and leave their shame at the door. But the movement's growing as far as the base. Our Brockton leadership base is building, North Side and East Boston. We just had a protest out there last week because one of the members out there faced an eviction on Friday of last week. She was pushed out of Maverick Landing by a corporate landlord who's just really looking to divide the whole establishment and move in and start building high rent condos. And that's part of the gentrification that we're facing on a daily basis. And every hood in Dorchester, Roxbury, Mattapan, Hyde Park, they're all facing it. So we're being pushed out.
So with this dilemma that we have, and it's in our face every day, we see it, when they talk about, say down at Dudley. Yeah. I have difficulty saying Dudley because he was a slave owner, and I think that name needs to change. But anyhow, when you see the Bruce Lee Bowling Municipal Building, when you got the police headquarters and the school department, because we all know when you have those types of organizations, that's considered Central City. So seeing what's going on out here right now and the work that the organization is doing, do you get a sense that there's any support coming from, say, the quote-unquote established groupings out here around the work that you're doing, or they're just kind of setting aside and you're kind of isolated, just trying to do the best you can?
I mean, there's support. There's support there. We get support from funders. There is some support from city councilors, elected officials, as far as just cause eviction and the law that we're trying to get passed that would help a lot of tenants and homeowners that are after foreclosure. It'll require landlords that are not owner occupied to have a legitimate reason to evict, for them to mediate before they move to evict because of rising rents, and there'd be property tax relief for small landlords and small businesses and owner-occupied landlords. So there's always going to be supporters and non-supporters, but I think the bottom line is for the movement to be strong and for people to understand that the only way change is going to come is fighting for it, and as a collective body.
Okay, so we've got folks who are looking in and saying, well, geez, that all sounds good, but my dilemma, can they really help me? So maybe I could talk about somebody comes down to the office, because I hear you talking about the whole thing where you come around the property and stave off the the eviction at the time. So that our listening audience kind of gets a sense of how that works, and seeing as how you experience it, Lovely. Maybe you can talk about, the folks down. Is it confrontational? Are the police there talking about you got to leave, and then how do you relate to the banks? The whole bit there.
Oh, I was going to talk about something else, but so your question exactly is, what exactly is? I'm sorry.
If somebody from the listening audience
Yeah.
walks into the office, and they're kind of ambivalent in terms of how you can help them, then I hear Antonio talk about mobilizing folks, and there's
Right.
the blockade,
Yeah.
and so if there's a blockade, there's a confrontational, and then what's the next step after the blockade, so that a week later they still don't lose their property?
So in terms of it being confrontational, usually when the police officers are there, a lot of times, most of the people who, interestingly, a lot of the times the people who are around may be dealing with issues themselves. We found sometimes we've actually been part of eviction blockades, and the police officers who were there to kind of like protect the area, they actually have come to us later saying, hey, I'm also dealing with foreclosure myself. So a lot of times they're victims of the same things that we're fighting for. But usually if someone comes in, they shouldn't be apprehensive, because you don't have to get arrested. We tell people that. A lot of times people feel like they have to get arrested. Everything is, on a voluntary basis. So I think that in terms of power, there's power in organizing and mobilizing and speaking out. And if you're silent, nothing's going to happen. So I think it's very important for people to understand the power in mobilizing and coming together. But I was also going to talk about, I know we're talking a lot about homes and foreclosure, but lately a lot of the work I've been doing has been around organizing tenant associations. So for example, right now I'm working specifically in Dorchester with this building, this building, and we found that within this apartment complex, people are dealing with things like mold in their apartment. They're dealing with things like feces coming up from the tub, an unsafe environment. So what we have done at City Life, this is another project, because I'm part of the tenant organizing committee, is we're knocking on the doors, door by door, talking to people about what the issues they're facing, and encouraging them to form a tenant association. So within the last 2 months, this particular property has actually formed a tenant association. It has really very much worked in their benefit. So the tenants have come together and mobilized and have gotten support from ISD, Inspectional Services, and other city councilors, and we've actually been able to approach the landlord when prior to that the landlord didn't want to have anything to do with individuals who wanted to talk to him about their issues. But now that they're organized as a unit in an association, now they're, he's more willing to listen. So the importance, again, of just knowing your rights and organizing, I've definitely seen how powerful that has been.
Well, that seems like that would be critical.
It's very critical.
For the tenants to organize and come
Form
as a force,
association.
as one, versus,
Yeah.
like you said, individually trying to get their rights, and
Right.
they get isolated, and next thing you know, so.
And a lot of times they don't even speak to each other, the tenants, but now they have formed this community, and they meet every week, talk about the things that they need. Right now the landlord has tried to impose a rent increase. They all refuse to pay, which is very important, because once you do pay, you're just basically saying that you agree. So those are the types of things that they were not knowledgeable about, but now that they've come together, they're working with City Life, and we come to their complex and meet in one of the tenants' apartments, and so it's been very successful. It's been very successful.
You collectively bargain at that point.
Yeah.
I know that your staff, Antonio, but I'm thinking along the lines of, say, a Lovely Hoffman and her organizing skills. Is there a need for more folks like Lovely who are willing to do that type of work, because it seems like it's critical, that whole tenant organizing piece? So is there a need for
absolutely. I mean, it's a movement, and so the movement only moves if you have people to make it move. So volunteering is key to a lot of nonprofit organizations. So yeah, of course, more people like Lovely that are volunteering, more members that we have that have won their case, and volunteering. Even some members who have lost their homes, they're still with City Life fighting for other people. And so this is what I see. When I see that empowers me, that they lost their home already. There was, in the things that happen, some homes can't get saved for whatever reason. And when you see that, and you see somebody that's still there, that's like, all right, I lost my home, but they're still fighting for someone else so they won't lose their home. It's pretty empowering.
So we're living in a city, my understanding is that in terms of national ratings, they're saying that in regards to the rich versus poor gap, that Boston is ranked number